Africa, Central Africa, North America. It's very common. It's also common in the Middle East. Even in places such as Russia, the UK, the US, and France, this practice is practiced over there by migrants, especially African migrants and migrants from the Middle East and Southeast Asia who have migrated to Europe. All practice this. So it's very pervasive. And according to estimates, several thousands of girls, some as young as 7 days old, yes, they go through this practice. And it has a lot of challenges for the women and girls who go through it. So it is something that we need to talk about because a lot of women suffer and go through this practice very silently with no one knowing about it. Right.
So is it possible to tell us specifically some of the reasons? You gave a general idea that it's for religious, cultural purposes. What are the specific reasons for this cutting?
Okay, so the reasons, one of them is religious. So let me touch on the religious first. And later I would prove that it doesn't have any religious basis at all. But there are people of the Muslim faith who do it for religious reasons. And they argue that this practice is sanctioned by their religion. But the truth is that if you go through the Quran, there is nowhere, that it's stated that women must go through this practice. There are other practices that you find in the Quran and in Muslim texts, such as women covering their hair and all that. But this practice, you would not find in any of the Muslim or Islamic texts and in the Quran. So I believe that mainly it is a form of practice that seeks to control the lives of women. About 7 years ago, a 9-year-old Egyptian girl died from this practice. And so the BBC interviewed one imam in Egypt about this practice. And his response was that women tend to be promiscuous, And so when they go through the cutting, it will prevent them from being promiscuous, okay? And so the reporter goes on to ask him, what about men? Because men are also promiscuous. And he says, as for men, Allah has provided for them to marry up to 4 women if they are able to take care of them, okay? So for men, Allah provides for them, but the women, there is no provision to curb the so-called promiscuity. And the only thing that they can do to curb the so-called promiscuity is to let them go through this practice. And I also say that it's just to control the lives of women, because when you look at Ghana, the Muslims in Ghana, don't practice this. They don't have it. And we have Morocco,
Okay.
which is an Islamic nation. We have Libya, which is an Islamic nation. But in these two countries, you don't have this practice prevailing.
I
So
see.
sometimes the men who are the custodian of religious texts, would want to use it and to control the lives of women. So people combine both the religious, backing it with religion, and then the cultural that, yes, women are likely to be promiscuous, so you have to control them. So you have the religion and the culture being intertwined. Apart from that, some other cultures also see it as a way to womanhood. So it becomes a rite of passage. So rites of passage, rituals that are performed for people to signify the end of one's stage of life and the beginning of another. So a typical example is the Krobo Dipo rites, or the Akan Bragro rites, which have largely stopped. But when you menstruate, the rites are performed for you to signify your transition to womanhood and adulthood. So that is how some cultures take the FGM. So in that case, it is practiced, it is done for girls who reach puberty, and then they go through it to signify that they are now women and adults, and that they are ready to marry. So for such cultures, if you don't do it, you are not, quote unquote, a real woman. Yes, and so you may not get anybody to marry you. If you get somebody to marry you, your value would go down drastically, as in the bride price that would be paid for those women and girls who do not go through this rite. And then lastly, it's also done for aesthetics. That is, you are considered a real beauty if you go through this rite. Nobody sees it.
Exactly.
But yes, but the men find you beautiful if you have done this. So these are some of the reasons. But personally, I believe that it is a practice that is designed to control the lives of women. Because indeed, when you go through this, you will never enjoy sexual relations. Yes, because they have painful sexual lives. Yes.
Okay. We'll talk extensively about the damaging effects as we go along.
Yes.
But now, can you tell us the types of the cutting?
Right. So there are four main types of FGM. And the first type is the simplest of the four, and that is called clitoromogy, something like that. So clitoridectomy is a huge word. It just means that the clitoris is removed. So that is the first and the most simplest form, where the clitoris is removed from the female genitalia. And the second one is known as excision. And sometimes it's called the type 2. So the type 2 includes the removal of the clitoris and the mouth of the vagina. It's called the labia minora and the labia majora. So both are removed. And this one is the one that is common in Ghana. So it's called excision. And then the third one is called infibulation, also known as type 3. And that is the most gruesome of all the types because it consists of the removal of the clitoris, the removal of the labia minora and the labia majora. Everything is removed. And then it is sewn together. So they cut everything and close the whole vagina area and leave just a small hole the size of a matchstick or two.
What?
Yes, to allow for urine and menstrual blood.
Oh my goodness.
You know. And then the fourth one has to do with maybe piercing. There may be people who may pierce their genitalia or put some anything. People will put in like rings and other stuff into it. So those ones does not involve the removal of anything, but maybe piercing and other things. Some also don't consider it as even part of FGM, but since it has
because
to
it seems
do
more like a personal decision.
exactly.
Okay. I didn't know about that.
Right. So these are the common the four types of FGM. Yes.
Wow. So with the third one, that I mean, it means that you can't get involved in sexual intercourse at all from the way you've
No,
explained.
no, until you are married.
So when you're married, what they cut it open?
Exactly, to allow for
Ah,
childbirth and all that. So that explains the high maternal mortality rate in some African countries because these women, really struggle before they can deliver. Yeah.
please tell us a bit more about that. How the act affects women's reproductive health.
Right. So the challenges that come with it or the health risks are truly numerous. People have died from it, from shock, bleeding, and infection. People also experience painful sexual intercourse. And some also don't enjoy any sex at all, even when the clitoris is removed. For a lot of women, it is the clitoris that gives them pleasure. So they don't have any pleasure, at all. Yeah. And then we've also talked about the dangers of pregnancy and childbirth because during delivery, the vagina would have to expand. And where the infibulation and then the second type, the whole thing has been cut, the expansion is dangerous. They experience tears in their vagina and other places. So childbirth is really difficult and dangerous for these women. And some of them also, of course, experience infection because the tools or the blades that are used are unhygienic. In places like Kenya and other places, they put a lot of girls together. So you have one cutter, maybe an old woman or a man, whoever is doing it, using the same blade for all the girls or the women at the same time. Yeah. So it is also a recipe for the transmission of infections, all kinds of infections, HIV, AIDS, UTIs, whatever, because you are all using the same blade in cutting. So these are some of the issues. Some of the women also experience vaginal fistulae. And the fistulae occurs when there is a tear in between the vagina, the anus, and the urine organ. So these women are not able to hold urine, and they are not also able to hold their feces because they struggle a lot to deliver. So they are oozing urine and feces all the time. And unfortunately, these are also poor women who don't have money to buy pads or diapers to hold their urine. And so they become outcasts in their own families and their own communities because they are smelling, all the time. So they end up being marginalized within the same family that wanted them to go through
Exactly. You said it's
this.
a rite of passage. Now you're
Exactly.
marginalizing them.
Exactly. So that is the irony of the whole situation. So the health challenges are so myriad because it affects their sexual life, their marriage, childbirth, and these are communities that are expecting you to marry and to have children, a lot of children, not just one or two children. Yes.
I can imagine that it will affect them mentally and psychologically. Can you speak
Exactly.
a bit on that as well?
Right. So the mental and the psychological challenges are also very real, especially when the girls are a little bit older. Those who are cut during their childhood, normally they don't know about anything. You grow up with it. But the challenge is with those who are older, who have a sense of identity. And so these children are very traumatized. Some of them are lured, actually. So the migrants in the UK, France, and those places, they tell them we are taking you to Kenya or we are going to Tanzania for holidays. And then they take them there and circumcise them and bring them back, And so these children experience a lot of shock, anger, at the system. But you know how our African society is, you cannot complain to anybody. You have to bottle it up, which subsequently will lead to depression, for these women. Yeah.
I believe that even for those who are young when it's done for them. I mean, I'm sure as they grow up and also become aware, they realize that there are other girls who are not like them. They'll probably start wondering why my
Yes.
genitalia looks the
Yes,
way it does.
exactly.
Yeah,
The thing is, if you are within your small village and town, then maybe everybody has done it.
yeah,
But let's say
yeah.
if you go to secondary school and you have to be in the boarding
Mm-hmm.
house,
Yeah.
or go to the university and you have to be in a hostel, then people may begin to make fun of you because, and you know, secondary school, we have a big bathroom and everybody is
Yeah,
bathing, you know,
yeah.
so that then you realize that your genitalia is different from the other girls. Yes. So they also experience stigma and other issues there.
So what in Ghana, what's the government doing? I read somewhere that some health workers were being involved in some of the efforts to stop the act. What they do is instead of the cutting being done at home, they ask them to come to the health centers, and they are hoping that this will deter them, or rather make them feel like it will be a safer place, or what do you call it, a more sanitized place to do it. And then when they come, there's some counseling about it and some effort to stop them from doing it. Is it really having an impact on this?
I don't think so. I don't think it's having an impact. The law banning this practice has been in force for 20, 30 years, as far back as 1989, when the government started putting in place policies and law to ban this. But as we speak, not even a single person
Well,
has been prosecuted, you
mm,
know. So I think that the way to go is to get an attitudinal change from the communities.
yeah,
Because in Ghana, when you ask people to make a report, nobody will. People would not report their mummies and daddies or aunties to the police, you know, for doing that. Even when somebody finds out and you send it to court, people are going to deny that it never
yeah,
happened. So that is why it is not having an impact. And I think that the government and the NGO would have to be aggressive
yeah,
with its approach in order to stop this practice. Because as recent as 2 years ago, studies have been done in the Upper East region, and it shows that the practice is still prevalent in those communities. People are still doing it. But I think that we are not aggressive, that the practice is inimical to the health of women. Okay. Ironically, it is the women who insist that other girls and young women should go through this practice. So if they are able to change the mindset of people, then I believe that the practice can be eradicated at some point. Yeah.
So, in terms of the research that's conducted, do you think that um, the dissemination of information from that research is not done effectively? Because if, for example, it comes out from the results show that that there's high mortality among women who undergo this act, or on whom these acts are perpetrated through delivery or infection, etc. If this information is disseminated effectively, don't you think that should help with the attitudinal change?
Yes, I believe that if the information is disseminated adequately, then it will change people's attitude. But the practice in Ghana is that there seems to be a disconnect between research and practice. I am in academia. We do the research and then we publish it, So if you want to read, you go online and you get it. We don't go back to the community to tell them that we came to conduct this research and, these are our findings. So exactly. So I think that there should be a strong connection between research and practice. Elsewhere, government will put in policies based on the research that people have done. But here in Ghana, if you do the research and you don't go knocking on the doors of policymakers and you are not insistent, then nothing will be done about it. The NGOs are working, yes, but I think that there should be a new approach in trying to deal with this menace.
This is really unfortunate.
Yes.
Such a thing to be happening, and everybody seems to be turning a blind eye to it. But hopefully, platforms like this will open people's eyes to what's happening in our own small way. So yeah, so that brings me to my next question: what can we do individually to tackle this issue?
Okay, so individually, I think that the platforms like yours, what you are doing is one of the ways, to tackle it, advocacy, to advocate for the government to act and to also advocate for the community leaders, to know the challenges and the problems that the women go through, women themselves, those who have been cut, they go through these challenges, right? But they take it as if it is part of being a woman. That if you're a woman, you should be brave, okay? If you're a woman and you are going through labor, you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't shout, okay? So yes, they have gone through, but they're enduring it. They think that it is what is expected of them to do as women, that you have to endure pain, that you shouldn't show your pain. So in Ghana, we show pain for the wrong reasons. You are going through pain, you will not cry, but when somebody cries, that dies, sorry, then you're expected to be crying and wailing.
Yeah.
If you don't cry and wail, you are a witch. But if you are giving birth and you cry and you wail, then it means you are weak. Okay. So if the older women are made to know that going through pregnancy and delivery and having sex that is painful and keeping quiet does not make you a brave woman. In fact, you
So,
shouldn't be going through that. Okay. So when the other women get that, then they would begin to bring about changes, because as I've said, it is the older women who insist that the younger women should go through this practice. I know people would say that women are their own enemies.
enemy.
Okay, but I don't think that is the case. I believe that in Ghana and so many other African countries, child rearing and socialization is the duty of the woman. You are supposed to bring up a dutiful daughter. You are supposed to bring up a disciplined daughter, a daughter who is not promiscuous, you know. So the women don't want to be said of them that they haven't done a good job as mothers and as grandmothers, because their granddaughters and their daughters are wayward, they have not covered their hair, they didn't allow themselves to be cut and all that. So you want to conform to societal standards of motherhood, what a good mother is, raising good children. So that's why the women insist that you have to go through. Otherwise, society is going to say that I haven't done well as a good mother. That is where the status of women is, being a good mother. So you find the mothers, the older women insisting that the girl should go through that so that their status as good mothers would go up. Okay. But if we are able to let them know that being a good mother is maybe letting your daughter have a good education, going through nursing training, whatever, or even trade and being independent, you know, as a woman, then maybe their mindset will change. And I believe the men would support them, you know,
But you know,
in
there are some
changing some.
people who are educated but somehow still hold firmly to these cultural practices.
Of course, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There
So,
are educated people who still have these cultural practices. But education does a lot of things, you know. There are very few educated. I'm not saying that cultural practices are not good.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But very few educated people would insist that a woman or a girl should go through that gruesome practice. For other cultural practices, that's fine. But when you're talking about this thing that harms women, if you are educated and you know the science behind it, I'm not sure you would insist that people should go through. So education does really make a difference.
Great. Thank you so much. At this point, I want to open the floor. I know you have another meeting to go back to, so we'll try and be quick about this. I've seen a few questions and comments in the chat. I'll read them.
Okay.
To my audience, if you have any question after we've gone through the ones in the chat, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question. If someone says, why should this be allowed at all, considering the strong negative impact of the act? What is the benefit or reasons for this act vis-a-vis the negative impact of these ladies? why should this be allowed to continue? Amazingly, the same people want who went through this act to promote others to go through the same. Why can't they prevent us standing against this act? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I'm thinking that probably some of these women, they're also probably jealous of the fact that these young women won't go through the same deformities or pain that they're going through. You know,
Yeah.
they don't like the fact that these women will have normal sexual lives, etc. So they want to
Yeah.
ensure that it's also done to them. So they end up on the same level with them. Because really, if you are suffering and you are a good person, you wouldn't want the other person to go through what you are going to, knowing the negative impact of what has been done to you. Okay, he goes on to say, what is the correlation between the practice and the male circumcision? Should the male circumcision be protested? I'm not sure. Maybe he's trying to say protected. Should the male circumcision be protected as well? Please confirm exactly what you are trying to point at. I also thought about that, but I think from what I know with the circumcision, it has more to do with ensuring that the male organ is kept clean or sanitized. Because what I know is the food that is taken up tends to, what do you call it? It tends to trap bacteria and all kinds of things that will bring about infection. So for that, it's a bit understandable. But you, as the experts, you tell us how that's different from the FGM.
Okay, so in male circumcision, the difference between the male circumcision and the female circumcision is that in the male circumcision, the men are not deformed, and you are right. What is cut is the folds, you know, and it does not have any negative consequences on the men, except when it is not done well. And it is done under unhygienic circumstances.
Yeah.
So for instance, in South Africa, amongst the Zulus, male circumcision is a rite of passage. So they have a season where all the young men are sent into the mountains, sometimes for 2 weeks, to go through circumcision and then certain rites. So they are confined, and they go through the rites, and they go through some form of informal education about what it is to be a man and all those things. And because they remain in the bush for 2 weeks or more, a lot of them develop infections. And the government has also found out that some of the spiritual men who do that, do it for the money, because parents pay. You know, you have to pay to send your son to go through this circumcision. So in that case, then the government has to set in, because it is done under unhygienic conditions. And they've shown that a lot of men have lost their manhood, because by the time they get from the forest into civilization, you know, they have developed infections, and the whole thing has to be cut and all that.
Oh boy.
But research has shown that male circumcision actually reduces HIV/AIDS infection by 60%. You know, because when the fold is not there, there is no entrapment of death, infection, and whatever. But the female one, you are actually cutting something that is not supposed to be cut, and which is having adverse effects on these women. Yeah, so that's the difference. But if the man doesn't want to cut, whether it's for religious or cultural reasons, then they should just be left alone. But it's proven that it reduces infection in men.
And would you advocate that it's done like we do in Ghana when the male child is an infant, or we should wait?
Oh, in Ghana, by
I'm
8
thinking,
days you are apart.
yeah.
By 8 days you have been circumcised. Yes. These days they don't even use the knife. The hospital, they have something they tie to the tip of the penis and it just peels off by itself. Of course, we acknowledge that if it is not cut well, you put the young boys into jeopardy. Yes. So,
but the example you gave about South Africa, that's when they are older, right?
Exactly, because it's a rite of passage, ushering them from childhood to adulthood. That one they are old, 18 years,
That can be traumatic.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, the idea is the circumcision is to protect, while the FGM is rather damaging.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's another comment. Sagani says, well, while women are indeed the ones who ensure the cutting is done, they do so to serve a cultural purpose, which is ensuring marriageability of the daughters. I think we've somehow fought it in the wrong way. If men were to say they're not going to marry women who are cut, this will immediately have a dramatic effect on it. So I think any serious intervention must tackle men. That's really true. We haven't really considered it from that point of view. Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
The men start rejecting women who are cut.
Because the mothers are afraid that if their daughters are not cut, they won't get
married
to marry. And when they marry you, you get even a marriage proposal, you are not going to get any good bride price,
It's true. It's true. So we should really rope the men in.
Yes. I agree.
Have them help to stop this. There's another comment. The mindset of discouraging the ladies to be promiscuous by this act. The impact of this act affects their interest in sex when they get married. Hence, its further negative effects on their marriage, hence leading the husbands to find alternatives in satisfying their sexual ambitions. What can be done to help such ladies to enjoy sex? Is there anything like reconstructive surgery or something like that?
Yes, reconstructive surgery is available. I know it's available in France.
Okay.
So France has a program for the women there. And I think Germany also, but in Ghana we don't have that program for the women. The program that is available is for those who have the vagina fistulae to stop the leaking. Yeah.
So with the reconstructive surgery, does it bring back the sexual, the ability to be aroused? Let's say if the clitoris is reconstructed, do they get that sensitivity again, or it's totally gone?
I am not sure.
Okay.
I am not sure. But in the Western world, they have a lot of programs, social programs for their people, So I believe if women are able to go through like sex therapy, and find other ways of achieving pleasure. That is done. But in Ghana, if you're a woman, you are not expected to, show sexual pleasure. So you cannot even tell your husband that you are not enjoying the thing or you are not having pleasure. And we don't have such programs. If women want to seek help, then you do that, individually. But the government doesn't have any programs for such women. Yeah. And considering that most of them are also poor, there is no way you are able to get help for sexual pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. Someone is asking, what is the role of the church in curbing this? What is the role of the church?
I think the church can do a lot. Except that in Ghana, where this occurs in the Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region, they are some parts of the Northern region in the remote areas. They are either Muslims or don't go to church. But I believe that the churches can play a big role in this. And so we are encouraging them to take it up. They can bring about changes. Yes, I agree.
So we can hold programs to create awareness and encourage people
Exactly.
to speak up, if they see something like that happening. Because we are the ones who are to lead the way in living the abundant life that Christ has given us. That's what I always say on this show.
Exactly.
Our lives are supposed to be fruitful and bring glory to God. So we need to take care of each other and ensure that.
Yes, that the church would have to be careful.
Yes.
So that they are not branded as, bringing Western ideas and all that. Yeah.
Yes. we
but
need a lot of
they can do
stuff.
it. Exactly.
And I think even with the other religions, especially since it's prevalent in the Muslim communities, mosques, the imams can also be talked to.
Yeah. Exactly.
To address this issue. Great. I have a few. Unfortunately, Manasseh can't make it, but she sent some comments, and most of them we've already addressed. But I'll read just a few, which has to do with the impact of FGM on the family. She says she's talking about the woman. She says her ability to relate to her own difficulties, disrupted sense of well-being and health impacts on ways in which she can address family well-being. We don't know how mothers who undergo FGM relate to their young girls. Do they want it to happen or not? We know that they don't lead good quality and meaningful spousal relationships, especially sexual relationships are impacted for both wife and husband. Sex happens with lights chat as a woman is so much pain. She says that we need to carry out ethnographic and in-depth family-based studies and clinical work. As a psychologist, she thinks mothers with trauma experience can have a hard time engaging their families proactively. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if the mom has been traumatized by such an act, it would be quite difficult for them to relate, especially with their female child. But it could also be an opportunity to also protect the female child, especially if they're not in a community where it's forced on them.
Yes.
So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I said that is a good idea, except that people don't talk about sexual relations
I know.
at home. So,
It's a
uh,
problem.
exactly. So I'm not sure mothers will even know how to bring up the questions, or daughters to bring up the questions and, ask their mothers,
Mm,
about it. But I do agree, yes. But yeah, culture, we don't talk about sexuality
yeah.
in the house. Yeah.
I think that's one way that the church can be involved, where we encourage members in families, parents, or teach them. Sometimes we think that church is just about studying the word, Bible study, etc. But it's also a place where we can educate ourselves about life issues. So parents can be trained on how to interact with their children, how to talk about these sensitive.
Hello?
Is it just me or did we lose Abigail?
I think we lost her.
Yeah.
So we are waiting for her to reconnect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello.
back.
I'm so sorry. My
Uh,
internet suddenly went off.
and that is okay.
Okay. What were we even talking about? About the church. Yes, yes. So I was talking about how the church can also help train parents
Mhm.
to be able to freely talk to their children
Yeah.
so that these things can be addressed. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments anyone has? Or if you are a health worker and you want to share anything about FGM, anybody? Okay. Looks like it's been clear to everybody. It's, it's been a good session. I've learned a lot. And it's my prayer that this will go a long way to help make people aware, and be intentional about helping in efforts to stop this accident because it's clearly damaging people's lives, the woman's life, the female's life. So Hemeni, you can give us your final remarks, and then we'll let you go.
Okay. Thank you. So I would say that it's quite difficult dealing with some cultural practices and to stopping this heinous crime, which FGM is part. So I think that all of us have to be on board. We have to be aggressive in the fight against FGM because it's been so long since the law was passed against it. But the practice still persists. So we should all put our hands on deck and try and put a stop to it so that future
You never know
generations
when.
exactly will not have to go through again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sometimes these issues seem so far away. You never
Exactly.
know.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're very close to you. But we pray
Yes.
that it will be, how do I call it, dealt with before that event happens.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. It has been
No.
good. I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this despite your busy schedule. God willing, we'll call upon you again for another health topic.
Okay.
All right. Can you please pray with us to end?
Okay. So, Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this evening's session, giving us opportunity to talk about something that affects so many women and girls' lives, particularly in our own nation. We pray that you grant us the strength, you give us the wisdom and the knowledge to tackle this situation. We commit all those who are very adamant, who still hold on to this practice, that Father, you send the Holy Spirit to speak to their heart. That Lord, when they hear about stopping this practice, they will give their hearts wholeheartedly to it, and that this practice would stop. I pray for your daughter Abigail and for this program and the good thing that she's doing, that God, you will bring helpers her way, grant her the resources that she needs to be able to push this program ahead. We thank you and bless you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Bless you so much.
Thank you.
Following, I'll see you in church.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So
Thank
this has
you.
been the ABBY. You're welcome. Very welcome. This has been the ABBY Imani Reveals Show. This is where we speak, we are real so that we can live. We thank God for helping us discuss the issue of FGM. So let's go out there, create awareness, and do the little or the big we can so that this damaging act is stopped. Have a good night, everyone. As usual, share your faces and meet yourselves as you exit.
Good night, Abby. Good night, everyone.
Good night.